Hiya, it's Sophie from Made in Kent Radio. I know firsthand how hard it is to get into radio. You can't get experience without a radio reel, and you can't make a radio reel without having radio experience. Well, here at Made in Kent Radio, we're going to change that by offering you a professional radio demo pack. We'll help you produce a professional industry standard radio reel in our studios, and not only that, you'll get a 1 hour slot on a Sunday evening to test your skills. And we'll even put you on the roster to cover shows here at Made in Kent Radio. What's not to love? We have an exclusive discount code for Presently users too. That's PRES10. Head to madeinkent.co.uk to find out more, and we'll see you at the studios.
Welcome to Presently Presents.
And I had one foot in the acting camp and one in the presenting camp, and I was trying to be everything to everyone, and I ended up being kind of nothing to no one, if that makes sense. Like, are you an actor? Are you a presenter? And it was weird. As soon as I made the decision to stop acting, I've worked constantly non-stop as a presenter. Gain knowledge, learn your job. This is so important. Learn your job, learn every last detail about your job, so that, and practice it, not until you're the best, practice it till you can't get it wrong.
Welcome to today's episode of Presently Presents, where we're joined by a multi-skilled live event host and TV presenter. Our guest has a wealth of experience spanning the UK, including hosting for music festivals like CarFest and RunFestRun for Chris Evans. Our guest is no stranger to presenting at live streaming events and hosting for huge film premieres, game shows, award ceremonies, and charity auctions. His exceptional stage presence and ability to engage audiences make him a true master of keeping an audience entertained for an event. He's fresh off from hosting a fitness award ceremony just last night, and we're thrilled to have him on the show today. Today's Presently Presents guest is Matthew Walker.
That's a very nice introduction.
I need to take your job.
It's quite nice to be on the other side of the fence for once. What a lovely introduction. Thank you very much.
You're welcome. I'll take that as a compliment from such an experienced live event host compere. How are you?
I'm very well indeed. How are you?
Very well, thanks. So you did a charity event last night. How did it all go?
It was great. It was a 2-day event for a company called Snap Fitness. So last night we had their annual gala award. So it was nice. It was black tie, nice atmosphere. It was great. It was a really nice night.
Amazing. Sounds great. And we kind of go way back a little bit, don't we? We realized when we first logged on to the session that we haven't seen each other in many, many years. It's amazing to see you doing so well now. We worked together back in the day in Harrods, of all places, central London.
We did.
I think both of us, I worked there about 10 years ago, so I feel like showing our age now. But it was another life, wasn't it, where we were sort of both, I know you were acting, I was doing musical theatre, and we used to work there in between jobs. It was quite a good setup, actually, where we were sort of like, getting flexible work in between our acting jobs. Yes. Good old days.
It was, looking back, it was one of those jobs that actually was really good for a presenter. I know that sounds a bit daft, but you're constantly working with the public and you're trying to make people feel special. So, because it's Harrods, and looking back, it was actually a really interesting experience. Now looking back as a presenter.
Definitely. I always remember you just like super cheerful and lovely to work with. You were always like just so positive, despite being and maybe doing a job that wasn't the dream for us at the time.
No, certainly not.
You always gave off such good vibes anyway, despite that. But as I mentioned, so you were acting back then and you did lots of great jobs, I seem to remember. But how and why did you sort of switch to doing presenting?
Oh, do you know what? Long story short, I feel like I stayed in the acting game too long. Don't get me wrong, I love it and I really enjoyed it. I did a lot of television. I did a fair bit of theatre, but I don't know why. I just never felt I don't know quite whether it was imposter syndrome. It just never felt quite right. And then in between acting jobs, I would pick up little presenting things just to earn some extra money. And I just started to really enjoy it. And I think it's because I really enjoy people. I love people. I love getting to know them. I love talking to them and hearing about their lives and things like that. And it just felt so much more natural and comfortable to be a presenter.
Amazing.
And if you do genuinely love people, it's the perfect job. The perfect job.
I couldn't agree more. Did you feel also, I mean, I used to get this with musical theatre, which I guess was a slightly more over-the-top version of theatre acting and screen acting. But I used to feel like I didn't like being someone else. And actually, when I found presenting, I suddenly realised, oh, I love performing. That's what I love. And I love communicating and dealing with people and sort of, but not the side of it so much where you're actually having to be someone else. That for me made me feel a little bit uncomfortable. So I don't know if you found similar.
Completely agree. And it's so interesting, particularly with television, such a small shift, but it feels so much more comfortable to talk down the barrel than pretend to be someone else looking just off camera. Such a tiny, subtle shift, but it feels so different.
I couldn't agree more. It just feels like, I guess it depends. Some people love acting and they love getting into the character and embodying that person and learning about the character. But for me, I think I like to just be a bit more direct and speak to people. So I feel like we've had a very similar career path in that sense.
Yeah, very
How
similar.
long ago was it that you sort of decided I'm kind of done with acting?
It was about 4 years ago. And I stayed in the game too long. And I suddenly realised I was going to work one day and I had one foot in the acting camp and one in the presenting camp. And I was trying to be everything to everyone. And I ended up being kind of nothing to no one, if that makes sense. Like, are you an actor? Are you a presenter? And it was weird. As soon as I made the decision to stop acting, I've worked constantly nonstop as a presenter. Now, whether that's a mindset shift, whether it's people perceiving you in a certain way, I'm not sure, but it was 100% the right decision to make.
Amazing. Well, I've looked at your content online, watched your show reels, and it looks like you've absolutely found your forte in life.
Thank you. That's really kind.
Really, really impressed, especially your live comparing, because, a lot of us, we do sort of on-screen stuff, but it's quite hard to find these jobs and also do them well with such confidence. And it's the clips that I've seen, it's like you're just owning the room. And you've got that perfect balance between confidence, clarity, but also kind of letting the event sort of be the main sort of feature. So you're not like stealing the show, but you kind of are at the same time. I can't really explain it, but it's like you've got the perfect compare, like host vibes going on.
That's really kind. Thank you.
Did that come naturally to you?
It was interesting what you just said then about I'm not entirely sure how you articulated, but about running the show, but not being the center of attention. And that's exactly what our job should be as presenters. Our job is to showcase everyone else and put them in the very best light. And a live event is exactly that. You should run the show like a music conductor. You've got to run it with style, flair, passion, but you must never steal it because the event is the main thing. Even though you are the linchpin, so to speak, it's the event that is the main thing, and that's what you're there to sell and the people that are at that event. Mm-hmm.
How did it feel doing your first ever live hosting gig like that? Because I've done a few in my life and it is quite daunting because when you're behind a camera, you don't see the audience and you don't see their reactions. You don't have to kind of react to their atmosphere. Yeah. How did that feel when you first got into it?
Honestly, very natural. And I don't mean that to sound arrogant. I just mean it was kind of the transition we were talking about earlier between acting and presenting. For some reason, it just felt natural to be doing that. And I think, again, it's back to just genuinely enjoying people. I love seeing their reaction. And I love trying to, even if you've got an audience full of 400 people, say, I love trying to make each and every single person feel special, like they're part of the event. Of course, you can't do that with all 400, but if you can make 50 of them feel really special, the atmosphere, they're on board with you. You've got them then, and they're on the journey with you.
How do you go about doing that? What are the steps you might take? So you're kind of subconsciously thinking some of these things. Are there phrases that you would say, or things that you would kind of come out with to get the audience on board?
Do you know what? Yes and no. Someone asked me this last night, funnily enough. I came off stage and someone said, "Oh, I'd love to do what you do, and how do I get into it?" And I think the thing for me is remembering people's names. Mm-hmm. And it sounds so simple. And of course, again, you can't remember 400 people's names. But if you can remember 50 people's names in the audience, all of a sudden you can make a very large event feel very, very intimate and very personable, because you're talking to people, you're not talking at them. And there's a real subtle difference, but it makes all the difference when you're hosting something like that.
That totally makes sense. Is that something you're naturally good at? Because I mean, for me, I actually, that's one of the things I really struggle with, is remembering people's names. And I have to consciously tell myself 3 or 4 times, as soon as they say their name, I have to, in my mind, repeat it several times, otherwise I will forget. Right. Do you not have that problem?
I don't now, but I was for a long time brilliant with faces, awful with names. And in our line of work, I just had to find a way and learn how to be better. So for me, as soon as someone says their name, whatever comes into my head, I remember. So for example, yesterday, there was a lady in the audience called Robbie. And as soon as she said her name, I just pictured Robbie Williams. So every time I looked at her, I'd never forget her name, because in my head, she was Robbie Williams. And of course, the more you talk to her, then she just becomes Robbie. But for those initial few times, you just need a visual reference. There was a guy, again, last night, his name was Aaron, and he said, Aaron with 2 A's. So I just pictured him with a big AA sign on his head. You know, like the RAC AA company. And so that was it. I just remembered AA, Aaron.
That was me thinking you had an amazing memory, but really all this craziness is going on in your mind.
So whatever the first thing that comes into your mind, you just stick with it. And it's
those are
it really helps.
Good tips. And actually, it's something you can use in other ways. So I know I've done this. I've tried it once or twice for a self-tape, and the difference was remarkable in terms of learning the script. And it's exactly what you said. It's visualizing, creating pictures in your mind of each word or important part of the script. So I feel like anyone listening who's struggling with that right now, that is a really, really good tip that you can use day in and day out as a presenter. And it's also for things like reporting, you know, I guess for comparing at events, there's a lot of facts, things you need to learn. You need to know a lot about the business to look like you're the expert. You might show up for one day, I guess. Like some of these jobs are one-day jobs.
Yeah.
How is that process? So what is the sort of preparations you have to take to get to the point where you can go on stage and feel like I look and I am the expert in this business and I know exactly what's going to happen tonight?
Honestly, it's just research. Just research, wherever you can find it, whether that is talking to people, whether it's looking at websites, social media channels. And I think this is true for not just presenters, anything in life. Just you should know your job inside out. And the only way to do that is just to put the hours in. It's the only way. There's no cheat. You can't picture a man with an AA sign on his head. You've just got to work and just know what you're talking about. There's no quick fix, unfortunately.
So how long might that process take for you? If you had an event in maybe 2 weeks' time, at what point would you start that process?
Probably, it sounds daft. I kind of start thinking about it about 2 or 3 weeks before. As soon as I'm booked on it, really, I start thinking about it, whether that's if I'm out on a run or anything like that. And you just kind of find a few ideas. And then about a week before, I will properly sit down and do my research, just because if I do it the night before, you forget. You know, it takes a few days, certainly for me anyway, just to sink in and process. So I'll do it normally about a week before, and then the day before I will tweak things. And then at the event itself, again, you speak to people, you learn, things happen on the fly, and then I will make changes on the day as well.
So I guess that's something that, you know, employers should also take into consideration with their fee for these jobs, is that it's not just you showing up and, you know, memorizing a few lines.
Yeah.
It's the amount of work that takes to kind of get to that point it's quite a lot.
Yeah, an awful lot. It's like the reverse of being a photographer. You know, everyone sees the photographer at an event and that's their day done. It's not. They have to go away and spend 2 days editing all the images, and same with the film crew. And our job is the other way around. We spend time and energy before the event, so that on the day of the event, everything looks seamless.
Do you find that with this industry, once you have, you know, your sort of first maybe 5 clients, that you kind of get repeat work quite easily? Like, do they have enough events where you can kind of come back and do jobs regularly, or is it more of a sort of every now and again thing?
I have a core, I would say, of production companies that I work for regularly, probably 5, 6, 7, 8, something like that. But I'm quite old school in terms of I don't really use social media. I'm quite private as a person, and I don't really get my work through social media. For me, it's just work breeds work. It's networking. And like last night, for example, I was working for a company that I work for an awful lot. And the film crew were looking for a presenter for something they've got in a few weeks. So, of course, we exchanged details. I emailed him this morning, and we booked in a call for early next week to go over it. So it's just that work breeding work thing, and just constantly being proactive.
Great. Because there's a lot of people that ask us, like, how do I get to that next level with my career where I'm not always having to apply for jobs? So do you feel like that's something that, you know, maybe you've got your core work and then you apply for jobs for like extra work, or would it be the other way around?
Very good question, actually. I would say about 80% of my work is inbound, which is lovely. So nice.
Amazing.
Yeah. And what I always thought I wanted, and it's great, but actually it's the 20% that is the important part, because you can, or certainly I've found anyway, when a lot of work is inbound, you can find yourself just going along with the ride. Whereas it's the 20% that you have control of. That's the part which is really important, because that's what keeps your career on track. So it's so important to be, always putting yourself forward for things. Always. And actually, do you know what? The best example I ever heard of this, and it's not really presenting, I'll drop this name and I'll pick it up in a minute, but I worked with Michael Ball on a show called Chess in the West End. And great show. Michael was the headliner for it, but he wasn't approached to do the show because the production company didn't think that he would do it. It was Michael that said to them, I really want to play this part. Is it still available? And of course, producers said, yes, you were actually our first choice. We just didn't think you'd do it. So you never know the reason why you haven't got a job. So it's so important to just constantly be putting yourself forward.
Amazing.
It's really important.
So is that something you would say that you spend, you know, how often would you be doing that in terms of looking for jobs? Is it something you do regularly? Yeah,
daily. And actually, a huge thanks to you. And I should say to anyone that is starting out in presenting, Presently is by far, and I'm not just saying this because you and I are talking, it is by far the best platform I've seen for presenters and jobs.
Thank you so much.
By a million miles.
Well, I love that. That's really great to hear. And we're trying, you know, we're making good waves in the industry, and it's just, again, you know, that momentum for all of us, like getting, you know, the jobs coming in and good reputation.
If I can ask,
but
sorry, just to interrupt, Presently, is it something that you always wanted to do, or was it something you that kind of happened organically along the way?
Yeah, do you know what? When I first started, I feel like I'm being interviewed now. This is fun.
So I don't want to be that person that interviews the interviewer, but I was really interested.
No, I I think it's great. When I started presenting, I noticed that there was a lack of sort of resources for presenters out there, and I found it quite hard to find, my first jobs. So I always had it at the back of my mind, it'd be really good to do like a platform just for presenters and maybe some voiceover work, because I know a lot of presenters will do voiceover as well. Yeah. So yeah, I just had to wait a few years until I was ready, had a bit of time, and during COVID I had a little bit of extra time to try and make it a reality. I know. So it's luckily, it's still around. COVID's mostly gone now, thankfully, in terms of how it's affected our lives. But yeah, it was something I definitely wanted to do. I've always loved the idea of having a business, and I get so much joy from the stories of people getting jobs. That for me is really what motivates me to keep going. And because I'm still presenting and doing my own career as well. So it's just about balance. That balancing act it's quite a lot of work. But just hearing these stories, anecdotes of people like landing these amazing jobs. Yeah. Sometimes they move to a different city in the UK and they change their whole life. Which is something I did, when I started presenting myself. I moved and, changed my life for a job. And, I just love, where it's ending up. And it's great because a job really is like such a huge part of your life. And we spend so long thinking about it at work. It's linked to a lot of people's mental health, how they're feeling, how their career's going. So it's great to be part of that for so many people and changing the path of their career, which it's really fun. Yeah, and I'm loving it. I just want us to keep growing and, keep having more and more production companies coming our way. So thank you for asking that.
No, I was just really intrigued because honestly, it's by far the best platform I've ever seen. And I use it every day.
Amazing.
Every day. Just check the jobs board, see if there's anything that's suitable. Mm-hmm. It's brilliant. It really is.
Oh, I love to hear that. Well, I'm so happy that you're finding it's working for you, and hopefully we can send loads of great jobs your way as well. So nice. I'm glad that's a good answer to that question. You're very proactive. That's the way to be, though. I think in this industry, I think the people who tend to get the jobs the most, from what I've noticed on the platform, it's the people who are obviously very good at their jobs. But there's a lot of people like that, and it's the ones who are the most proactive and they respond as soon as the job post goes up. They send the best cover letters, they're really responsive on messages. The amount of times we see, an employer will write to someone, we'd like to shortlist you. Are you free for a call? And then they don't get a response. And then you're like, wow, that was a complete missed opportunity. So things like checking every day, checking your direct messages, being responsive, all of that is such a huge part of it. So.
Yeah. Again, funnily enough, last night I was chatting to the CEO and he booked the band for last night, just what you were saying about getting back to people. And he said he had two choices. He said he preferred one, if he was being honest. He went for the one he didn't prefer because they got back quicker. Within 15 minutes, half an hour of his inquiry, they got back, booked, done. And by the time the other band had got back to him the following morning, job was booked. Yep. It's so important, just being
so important,
proactive. And it's, again, I think it's doing the basics. It's old school networking. I think with social media particularly, I may be generalizing a bit here, but it's quite easy to get a bit lazy and just put all of your stuff out there and hope that people come back. Actually, like last night, LinkedIn is a wonderful, wonderful tool for our industry. Connect with people, you finish an event, message them, just say thank you. And be personal. And if you really mean it, say thank you if they helped you with something, if anything, just connect with people. Just old school networking. It's really important.
You had I saw your website, you had some good references from people you'd worked for. You had a few quotes on your website. Is that something, again, you'd sort of reach out to them after a job and be like, hey, can you give me a recommendation?
No, I don't think I've ever done that, actually. But it's just been really nice. Sometimes you get, and again, I will always email people or message them on LinkedIn after a job and just say thank you. I'll never ask for a recommendation, but if you thank someone and you're genuine about it, they quite often come back with a really nice comment if you've done a good job, obviously.
Yeah, amazing. So do you find that a lot of your kind of getting booked, maintaining your work, it's also sort of running yourself as a business, because, you know, when you're self-employed, you have to think of it as like a full circle. So you're not just, again, applying for jobs. There are other elements to it. Is that something you're quite mindful of?
Yeah, very, very. And it's hard, and it's not an easy thing to do, but you're absolutely right. We are a business, and sometimes you have to detach yourself from yourself and think of yourself as a business in order to be able to do that. And again, an example of this, I built my website a few years ago, and I noticed that people were getting to the contact page and then stopping. And I couldn't figure out why. I was like, what's the hurdle? Why are they not filling out the form or whatever it is? And then I'd gone off to do something else. I think I'd phoned a utility company, and I couldn't find the phone number. And I was like, I just want to speak to a human. It was like a light bulb. I was like, contact number. So I bought an 0207 number, Central London, and I direct it to my mobile. And I'm not saying it's a hotline, but I get a lot more calls than I do people actually filling out a form on the website.
That's amazing. That's really good to know. It's kind of old school as well, but you would think of it as like, oh, everyone uses, you know, LinkedIn and email, but actually that's a really good point. Yeah,
sometimes people just want to talk to a human, and particularly the human that might be hosting their event.
Yeah.
So yeah, you're absolutely right. Sometimes you have to just think, you have to put a business head on, detach yourself from yourself, and you know, do it that way.
And it can be quite tricky for people who are in that early stage of their career. So a bit like we were back in the Harrods days, where you want to make it your full-time job, but you're not quite there yet. And I think there's a lot of people like that who use Presently, where they're still sort of having to do a few extra bits. Did you find that transition between kind of full-time presenting and part-time presenting, did you find that sort of difficult to manage, or was it quite smooth for you?
I wouldn't... A little bit of both, if I'm honest. And again, this probably won't be true for everybody. I just noticed when I'd made the shift in my head to just be a presenter, I just was a full-time presenter. Now, again, whether that is just potluck or whether I built up enough connections by that point, whereas that I could be, I'm not sure. But for me, just that clarity of being a presenter, nothing else, it just worked for me.
So having the focus kind of helped along the way. Yeah.
And I think it's, again, someone asked me this the other day, actually. It was one of the guys on the crew on a shoot we were on who wanted to be a presenter. And he was asking how you make the transition. And he was going to speak to the bosses at the company. The problem is that that production company, they saw this person as part of the crew. They didn't see him as a presenter. So sometimes you have to just shamelessly put yourself out there as a presenter. This is what I do, nothing else. Because people, sometimes you just have to give them the full package, finished article. Does that make sense?
It's true that, yes, absolutely. I think image with a lot of companies is really important. It's exactly the same in news broadcasting with a lot of people I know who are producers who want to become a presenter, and they've worked maybe at a few different networks where they've worked as a producer, and they say it's really hard to change that team's impression of you as actually I'm now a presenter. So I think that's right. It's kind of putting yourself out there as, you know, just going for it 100% if you can and being like, this is who I am.
Yeah. And again, you know, there's no set rule or set path, but it certainly helped for me. It really helped.
Well, you've made waves, massive waves in the live hosting world, but you also do on camera, like auto cue jobs. Yeah. Is that something you kind of want to do more of in the future?
Yeah, I love television. I love it. Everything about it. I love the intricacies of it. Basic things, hitting your mark. I love television. So yeah, again, and that's the 20% for me. A lot of my inbound work is live, and I'm really grateful for it. But the 20% for me is focusing on more television, live television, if possible. Love live TV.
Oh yeah,
if it goes wrong, you've got to dig yourself out. quick.
Oh yeah, but I think actually you've done it the right way around because, you know, being so confident on stage and having these live interactions, that's quite an intense experience. You probably have a lot of adrenaline coursing through your body. So then switching to live TV is, you know, it's the same, really.
Yeah, yeah. But I love the jeopardy of live TV.
Mm-hmm. Oh yeah.
And it's different to a live event, because if something goes wrong in a live event, it's not as obvious. Live TV, if it goes wrong, you've got to think really fast.
Yeah.
And dig yourself out quick.
I'm quite experienced in that field these days.
Yeah, of course.
Yeah, and it is good fun. There are days where you're a little bit tired and you kind of wish it wasn't live. I'm not gonna lie.
Yeah, I can imagine. Because what is your start time in the morning? When are you primed and ready to go?
At Talk TV, I've changed my shift pattern recently when I'm there. Right. So I used to be doing breakfast for a long time, and I'd be there at 5 a.m. I mean, I've done breakfast shifts for about 6 years on and off, which is, it kind of, you know, gets to you after a couple of years. But
so yeah, are you arriving at work at 5, or are you on screen at 5?
I would be arriving at 5, on screen at 6. So that's, yeah, there were days where you would be so tired, you know, especially on a Monday morning, because Sunday nights, you know, you can never sleep. Once you've had a weekend where you've gone out for dinner with your friends, you've gone to bed at midnight, then trying to go to bed early on a Sunday night, always, no matter how many years I did it, it was always really tough. So Monday mornings, I remember just sort of in your full glam. So you've been in makeup and you've had everything, you know, big makeup on, and you've got the lights everywhere. You do sort of think, wow, this is a very intense experience. But, you know, we wouldn't do it if we didn't love it. It's an amazing environment. And again, I love the live aspect. I think also making the link again with theatre. I think the reason why I love live broadcasting is also because I spent years, a bit like you did, you know, on stage and live performing. So it's all kind of similar, you know.
Yeah,
I've had people over the years who have said, "Oh, how do you feel about leaving the theatre world, and you know, you're not part of that sort of arts world anymore?" And I'm like, well, actually, I don't think I don't feel like I've left, because when you're on screen doing that live kind of broadcasting, it's a very similar feeling. It's a lot of adrenaline and it's a lot of sort of stress, but excitement at the same time.
Yeah, it's great. I love television. Just love it. Really love it.
Yeah. I think you'd be amazing, like hosting a primetime TV show or something. I could see you doing that.
Do you know, my ultimate goal, and I don't know what it will quite look like, but something like Dermot's role on X Factor, that for me would be dream job. You've got a full live audience, you're live on television, something like that for me.
I could definitely see you doing that. So what steps do you think you're going to take? Because obviously you said it's the 20%. You've got your, I guess, bread and butter, which is the live event hosting. Yeah. You're doing really well with that. You're, you know, having a great time. How are you kind of going forward, if you're thinking about it from a business sense? What are the steps that you might take to kind of make that shift?
I've kind of already, I'm always doing it. Mm-hmm. And again, I'm not sure what the exact route will look like, but for me, it's just about constantly making connections, whether that's writing to people cold, whether that is meeting people on events like last night, whatever that looks like. It's just networking. And sometimes you don't know what the path is, but as long as you can see the outcome, you just find a way through it. Mm-hmm. I hope that makes sense.
Yeah.
Because I'm not entirely sure, but I know roughly I'm kind of trusting the process.
Yes, that's a good place to be.
Yeah.
So in your years of being a presenter, what are the moments that you've had where you thought, like, this is it? You know, career highlights, those pinch me moments where you think, like, I would never change my career choice. Like, this is what I'm doing it for.
Do you know, there's been a few, but the one that came to mind as soon as you said that, I hosted a wonderful festival called RunFestRun a few years ago, and long story short, I've hosted CarFest for Chris for many years. I've done a few of the main stages, the dance stage, the Do More Good stage. And on the Sunday morning, they had a 10K run or a 5K, a run anyway. And that just got bigger and bigger and got more popular. And eventually that became its own festival, which was RunFestRun. and Chris was hosting the main stage at CarFest. So he very kindly trusted me to host the main stage at RunFest. And on the Sunday,
Amazing.
they had it was wonderful, just an incredible event, just the atmosphere, everything about it. But on the Sunday, they did a half marathon, and the finish line was in front of the main stage. And it was just a moment. The DJ was brilliant, a guy called DJ Aston, and he was playing great music. The atmosphere was great, people running past. And you just have a moment and just think, wow, this is work. You're getting paid to. I think I was dancing at the time as well. I was just messed about, and it was just lovely. It was a really, really nice moment.
That's so much fun.
It was great. It really was.
That sounds like an amazing job. And Chris is such a legend. I've worked with him in News UK. He's obviously the host of Virgin Radio's breakfast show, and I used to do some news on his show and come on and do some co-hosting and stuff. And he is such a pro to work with. So, I mean, what an honor to have been selected by him to host the main stage like that.
Yeah. And he's great. I mean, I'll be honest, I don't know him particularly well, even though I've worked for him. But yeah, every time we've crossed paths, he's incredibly inspiring, I think. Again, there was a moment with RunFest. I remember standing there, and with CarFest. And isn't it funny how one person can change so much about the world? Without him and his vision, all of those thousands of people would not have been there that day because of one man and his hard work and his dedication and his vision. Yeah,
he is really inspirational. I mean, I had a few of those pinch me moments when I was sort of in the studio with him on his breakfast show, and just like his energy, his passion for life. And a lot of it was during COVID when everyone was going through such a tough time. And he's such an engaging broadcaster and interviewer. I think, and also he's very passionate about running, isn't he? So he wrote a book about how to run a marathon or how to train for a marathon, quickly. And I actually bumped into him yesterday at work, and he's just always just so positive and just such a lovely person to be around, which again, I think is really important in this industry, because you're remembered as like I said about you, in Harrods, when I think about you, I think of you being really positive, smiley, like always really like upbeat and happy, when other people around us were a bit like, oh, this is not what we want to be doing with our lives, or whatever. You were always just like glass half full type of person. So I think, again, for work, it's really important that you have, obviously you don't want to be fake, but it's good to have like a positive sort of attitude stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And again, Chris is he's a great people person. Really is. Yeah. And it's genuine. It's completely genuine. He loves meeting people and giving them a platform, and he's great. He really is.
Love that. So for anyone listening who's right at the beginning of their presenting career, and they are happy with, exploring all avenues, whether it's live hosting, TV, podcasting, what would you say to them if you could give them a few tips in terms of where to go and what to do?
Oh gosh. There's so much we can do nowadays. We're really lucky with technology. So much we can do. And even though it's not for me, social media is a really powerful thing. And let's say you want to make a documentary. 10 years ago, that would have been really difficult. Now you could probably do it for under £500, if that. So it's just whatever you want to do. It's just about making the decision first and sticking to it. Like I was saying earlier about having one foot in either camp and it wasn't quite working. If you want to be a presenter, just stick by it and work hard. And it will. You've got to trust the process. It's just hard work. It's just working hard, and it's networking, and it's speaking to people. People like people, and people like working with good people. So that would be I guess that would be my advice. Talk to people, gain knowledge, learn your job. This is so important. Learn your job. Learn every last detail about your job, so that and practice it. Practice it. Not until you're the best. Practice it so you can't get it wrong. It's really important. It really is. And then when you're at work, just be be the hardest working person in the room, be easy to work with.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Such great advice. I think, as you said, be a great person, but the research, and again, sorry to keep bringing this back to theatre, but I do think it's quite similar in the sense where people used to say, I don't know if you got this, like, do you get nervous before you go on stage? And I used to say to them, no, because I'm so rehearsed.
Exactly.
That literally I would dream about the rehearsal, the shows, because you rehearse for, people don't know this about shows, that how much rehearsals go, months and weeks and hours, and you go and you go over it and over and over it so many times that you could literally do it in your sleep. So when you're just in autopilot, sometimes you can't really be nervous in that situation unless something terrible happens on stage. You just know it so well. So that really helps in presenting if you've done your research. The people who are out in the news world, reporters, they are able to focus on one story all day, and they can research everything about that story, whatever it is. They go on location, and because they've scripted, they've researched, they've read all day. Doesn't really matter where it goes, because they know they've got enough information in their mind about this story that if the presenter asks them an awkward question, they've got enough knowledge to kind of veer around it.
Yeah. Don't wing it. That would, again, probably be my advice. Don't wing it.
Yeah.
Just know what you're talking about. When something looks effortless, whether it's presenting, whether it's an actor, whether it's a chef, when something looks effortless, it's because there's hours upon hours of hard work that have gone in behind the scenes. That's the work. The work is done before you step on stage. Once you're on stage, it's too late. Or when you're in front of a camera, it's too late.
Yeah.
You've got to know what you're talking about, because that's what gives you the confidence.
It's so true. And I think, a lot of people say fake it till you make it. But actually, I think most people can see through it if you're sort of just trying to blag it and don't really know what you're talking about.
Yeah. And actually, do you know what? I'd go a step further. Once you know your job inside out, take television, for example. If you know your job inside out, then start to learn about other people's jobs. Not because you want to do them, but let's say you understand what your camera operator, you understand his job, even at a basic level. If you understand what he or she needs, then you are going to be very, very easy to work with, and you're going to build a good relationship.
Yeah.
So the next time they're on a shoot and someone says, oh, we need a presenter, guess who they're going to call? The person that was easy to work with.
Yeah.
So learn others, learn your entire industry.
Yeah. Wow, I love it. Such good advice. Literally, it doesn't get any better than that. And it's also the thing of like hard work pays off. So a lot of people who do well, like they've put in the work, they've put in the research, they've invested in themselves and their careers. And I think you are a prime example of that. So it's been such an...
As are you.
Oh, thank you. It's been such an honor having you on today, Matthew. I feel like you've offered some really wise words and loads of amazing nuggets of information that people can take away and use and implement into their own careers at whatever stage they're at. So in terms of social media, I know you said that you're quite private and you're not posting too much work on there. But if people do want to kind of look at your show reels or find you, where can they find you online?
So again, I don't use social media a lot, but I do use it. It's more of a shop window for me, if I'm being honest. But it's at Matthew Walker TV on Instagram. My website is matthewwalker.tv. And if I always say this, if I can help anybody, all my details are on my website. If you want to contact me or drop me a message on Instagram, if I can help in any way, please give me a shout. I don't know what I can help with, but if there's anything, any questions or just anything, just give me a shout. If I can help, I will.
Oh, that's so nice. Very supportive. Thank you.
My pleasure.
Amazing. Cool. Yeah, thank you so much for coming on. It was really nice to catch up after all these years.
Yeah, it was. On the contrary, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you.